Have you ever been on a road trip and heard a great story? We all love a great story, and we serve a great God. God's people have incredible stories to tell. It's time to share those stories with you. Come on, join me as we hit the road. Well, thank you for joining me today on this episode of Hitting the Road. And today we are going all the way down to the Dominican Republic. And we're very excited to have with us our missionary down there, Erin Mackenzie. And Erin, I've known you for a number of years. And as long as I've known you, you have been involved in missionary work. But let me give a little background for everybody of who Erin is. Erin was born in St. Louis. And her home congregation is my home congregation as well, St. Paul's in Des Peres. And she graduated with honors from Drury University in Springfield, Missouri, with a bachelor's degree in Spanish. So I never knew that about you, that you had a degree in Spanish.
Yeah.
Also studied abroad, and I'm going to have to let you talk about that in Granada, Spain. And then prior to moving to the Dominican Republic and working, Erin worked as a marketing manager here at Concordia Publishing House, and she was very influential in a lot of our Spanish-speaking material. And she also served as an LCMS missionary to Ysleta Lutheran Mission Human Care in El Paso, Texas. And that's where I first got to know you, Erin. Your mom was one of my daughter's teacher, teachers at St. Paul's. And the Mackenzies were always involved, it seemed, in a mission trip. You were always going to Ysleta. You were doing things around St. Louis as well. How long have you actually been in the missionary field now?
So I've been with OIM, the Office of International Mission, for almost 3 years. In March, it'll be 3 years. And I've been here in the Dominican for 2.5. I deployed in August of 2018.
Okay. And share with me, what were some of the biggest surprises once you first got out to the mission field?
So I live in Santiago, which is the seat of the regional headquarters for all of Latin America and the Caribbean. So there's a huge team of people here. We all live in the same neighborhood. It's about a kilometer squared. It's about a square kilometer. And I actually just wrote a blog post. I think we're going to talk more about the blog that I do a bit later on in the segment. But I just wrote a blog post about all of the transition that happens in missionary life and about how the closeness that you have with the other missionaries on the field, both obviously those that live in the same neighborhood, but also just those elsewhere in the region, makes those transitions really kind of hard. Like there's a lot of goodbyes and people moving around and lots of moving parts all the time. But you develop these really deep bonds with other missionaries because you just like get each other. You're living the same life. You gave up the same things. You see the same kinds of joys on the field. So there's just this mutual understanding that makes us really kind of like a family because we all work together and function together and sometimes dysfunction together. And we didn't pick each other, but we all like give each other rides and babysit for each other. And it really, the family ties here are really just incredible.
Well, and I do love seeing that in your blog. And you mentioned your blog,
Blogspot.
And I'll put a link down there as well. But I love reading within your blog posts when you do talk about being with the families and the different missionaries that are there and kind of hanging out in their homes and sharing events and sharing now some online things that you're doing. What are some of the things that, as you've been involved in missionary work, what have been some of the biggest blessings to you?
So one of my favorite things about being here is we all have our individual roles on the field. Mine is volunteer coordinator, which is mostly North American church facing, not necessarily a local church role like a church planting pastor or something would be. But any missionary is invited to go along on what we call visits. We have a seminary here, and all of the pastors in our local churches, as well as the seminary students, are all involved in mission outreach, church planting. That's our number one focus. And so even though I'm not teaching Bible classes and administering the sacraments and that sort of thing, I definitely consider myself a church planter. And I'm able to go on visits, as is any missionary, anytime. So basically the churches and the seminary students hit the road in the communities where we have churches, and they pop into people's homes, sometimes members, sometimes family of members, sometimes neighbors, anyone with a special health need or prayer concern or anything like that. And the seminarians or the pastors, whoever is there, deaconesses sometimes, will talk with the person, because that's what you do in Latin America. People are so hospitable. They just open your home, and you would never, ever have a conversation without first asking how someone is doing and how their family is doing. That's just part of the culture. And then after that, they get into the word. They usually will read a psalm or a passage and have a meditation on it. And then they'll pray with the person. And it's just incredible to watch them preach the pure gospel with such love. It's amazing. Every time I've been invited to go on visits or like thought that, hey, I haven't been on visits in a while, and I've had this nag, like, I should really be doing all these other things. And then I've gone anyway. I've never regretted it. It's so incredible. And there's amazing stories that come out of the homes that you get to spend time in. And
well, share one of those. You have something off the top of your head that?
Yeah, so I actually had to go back to my blog to refresh my memory on the details of this, but I remember I posted a blog about it because I did not want to ever forget this story, because it was super incredible, and it still is that way to me. So this was in March of 2019. So we're talking almost 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But I have never forgotten this man, and I still see him at church. So his name, he goes by the name Segundo, but he never knew his actual name or his birth date. So I'm not sure if that's his actual name or the name that he grew up being called. He never knew his actual name or his birth date until he was 70 years old. So he didn't know he was 70 years old. And the reason for that is because he was, I guess, a neighbor of somebody at church or a relative of somebody at church. So the seminarians and the pastors were visiting him, catechizing him with the goal of making him a communicant member, bringing him into our church family. So I was there one afternoon in March with a seminarian and I think a pastor and maybe the congregational president or something. And we were chatting about whatever. And then when we left, the seminarian was telling me his story. And he shared with me that they had been there recently talking about baptism, the sacrament of baptism. They were at that point in the catechism. And Segundo didn't know if he had been baptized. He was raised Catholic, though, in that same community. And so the seminarian, some student, went to the Catholic Church and looked up their records, and they had records going back far enough. And they found this man, and they found his baptismal certificate, I guess, which had his birth date and his name. And he had never known those details about himself until he was learning about baptism in the process of being catechized. And then he did actually become a member of our church. So I see him there now, occasionally. With the pandemic, he's in that high risk category, so he's been kind of spotty, but I see him there now with regularity. He's a member. He receives the Lord's Supper. It's wonderful to see him there. It just brings a smile to my face. And every time I see him, I think of how learning about baptism gave him his identity. And then it's just a real reminder and a beautiful picture of how baptism gives us our identity in Christ. I just love that story. And he has the most amazing smile.
That is a great story. In fact, as you were going through it, I was thinking that exact same thing, that through learning about baptism, he found his true identity as a child of God. That's great. What have been some of the cultural barriers that you've had to face? I mean, how does somebody just go from being in St. Louis to suddenly now living down in Santiago?
Well, there's island time. We operate on island time here. You probably can guess what I mean by that. Things sort of start when they start, not necessarily. If you get invited to somebody's house at a certain time, you just kind of, you can maybe leave at that time and you'll still be the first person there. So time is kind of, we operate on event-based time and not linear time. And then something else that I've noticed is the, everything is just kind of more in the moment. So a really good example that highlighted this for me is I was meeting with a group of people that included some local leaders and some North American missionaries. And we were talking about our topic, and then we said, all right, we need to meet again. I think it was like in 2 or 3 weeks or something. And we agreed that we were going to meet on Zoom. And so let me try to remember the details here. So we agreed that one person in the group, who happened to be one of our local pastors, was going to send out a reminder about the meeting. And in my mind, I was like, why don't you can schedule Zoom meetings, right? I was like, why don't you go ahead and schedule it? Like, even though it's next Tuesday, you can schedule it and then it'll be on my calendar. Because if it's not on my calendar, then I'm gonna forget that we're having it and I'm gonna schedule something else.
Right.
And he said, well, no, it's next Tuesday. I'll send you a reminder on Monday. Because if I schedule it now, and then I'm gonna forget that it's happening on Tuesday. So I need to be reminded about it on Monday, maybe even Tuesday morning, so that I remember that it's happening. And I just went, it was so telling to me that we had both of us wanted to be there. The topic was important, and we both had every intention of doing the best thing that we knew how to make sure that we didn't forget about the meeting. But we just went about that in completely different like worldviews of how we would best accomplish that.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny. Hey, tell me about Missions Unpacked. What's that about?
So Missions Unpacked was an educational experience, 100% online. It actually just wrapped up, but the Office of International Mission is going to be planning another one for later this fall. So watch for details about that. But basically, there's a group of missionaries that work with volunteers in all parts of the world. So me, my counterpart here in the Dominican, and then other missionaries who work with volunteers in Eurasia and Asia and Africa. And we put our heads together, and we're not, the Office of International Mission isn't sending in-person teams right now. And so we were like, how can we still engage people and educate people and just share about the awesome work that God is doing all over the world? And so we started with kind of one idea, and it morphed into Missions Unpacked. So it was a 4-week experience, 100% free, and it highlighted a different global region each week. Participants, once you registered and gave us your email address, you got a whole series of emails. So on Monday at midnight, everything would be unlocked for the first region. It was a week at a time, so you couldn't see weeks 2 through 4 at the very beginning. At midnight, everything unlocked for the first week, so you would have the opportunity to watch a video about the work of the whole region, like an overview. And then there was a website that we built for it, and on the website, each region had supplemental content. So for LAC, Latin America and the Caribbean, our supplemental content, there was kind of one activity that you could do each day to dig a little bit deeper. We had a missionary in Puerto Rico give a video tour of a plaza. We had missionary kids in Spain teaching a prayer. We had a visual faith craft led by one of our missionary moms. And we had a missionary pastor in Peru do like a cooking demo of making ceviche. So you could poke around on those activities on your own time. And then on Saturday morning, we had a live presentation. For LAC, it was a couple in Belize that led that. And we had about 60 people, I think, that were on that. We did a Zoom webinar. And they just got to tell their story and share about their work. And then it was very engaging. People got to ask questions. Q&A at the end. And then everybody who participated in week 1 would get kind of a wrap-up email, and then it would all repeat again for Asia and Africa, or Eurasia, Africa, and Asia. And our goals were to increase people's level of understanding about what the Office of International Mission does around the world, and get them to take the next step, whatever that is, wherever they are on the trajectory of knowledge and involvement in missions, jump to the next level. So whether that's ground zero and they have no idea what's going on anywhere in the world, which is fine, that's great. Maybe it's like LCMS mission work on Facebook, or whether they have maybe served as a missionary in the past. Maybe the next step is something a bit more dramatic. Maybe it's find an opportunity to serve in the future in person or something. But wherever they are, just move along to that next step.
Well, and I love what you said there, because you talk about stories. Everybody likes to tell their story. There are so many great stories in missionary work. There's so many wonderful things being done, and you're right on the field doing it. What are some of the other stories that you've seen or heard as you've been doing some of your missionary work?
So one of the other live presentations from Missions Unpacked was a young lady, recent college graduate, so completely different demographic than the Latin America presenters. But she told a story about how she deployed to her field, which is the Czech Republic. Mm-hmm. And she was there like 2 or 3 months, and then the pandemic hit and she went on lockdown. And one of her preoccupations going into serving abroad was that she wouldn't have a community of Christian friends. But it turns out that her like pod during the lockdown was a couple of other, she had a Christian roommate, or 2 Christian roommates, I think. And then there was another young man that lived in the same apartment block that she did, who had sort of kind of been involved in the church in the past, but was kind of struggling and doubting a few things. And so the group of them would hang out all the time during the lockdown, because it was just the 4 of them. They couldn't go anywhere, see anybody else, or do anything. And just the faith journey that he was brought on, that she got to be a part of and watch the Holy Spirit work in his life during the pandemic. It was a complete answer to prayer for her, because she had this Christian community, and then she also had the opportunity to help bring this other young man into the church and reignite the faith that was the Holy Spirit had created in him throughout the pandemic, and just watch him dig deeper into scripture and want to worship and want to be in the church.
Oh, that's great.
So that was a pretty cool story.
That's great. So yeah, it's great already. You've talked about 2 extremes, if you will, an older gentleman who found his identity, and then a younger, out of college person.
Yeah. So obviously we have all kinds of people in our churches. Mm-hmm. And then we have all kinds of people that serve as missionaries as well. So here in the Dominican, we have everybody from recent college grads. The assistant volunteer coordinator is actually a very similar demographic to the young lady I just talked about. She graduated from college and came to the mission field right away, which is what I did years ago.
Yep.
And then we have everybody from her all the way up to like retiree age kind of people.
So there's opportunities for just about everybody.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah, the other thing that I love about this too, and being able to get together with you on Zoom like this, but the idea of, even during this pandemic and not being able to be face to face with people, being able to connect like this with Zoom, either with you and some of the other missionaries around the world. I know you've Zoomed into our Sunday morning Bible class at times when we were doing Zoom. How is the technology keeping you in touch with others?
So it's kind of great, because as a region, we already use Zoom. I mean, the regional team that I'm a part of, the circle that provides direction and oversight for everything that happens in LAC is spread out amongst, there's a bunch of us in the Dominican, but then we also have people in Montreal, Canada, Panama City, Belize, Uruguay. For a while, we had someone joining us from Spain, occasionally the US, if people are on home service or what have you. So our like regular, this is our life. Our meetings are talking with people from all over the place. And before the pandemic, when I'm planning for a short-term team, I'm in regular communication with people in Jamaica and Puerto Rico and Peru. Like this is just our life. Since the pandemic, we've really had to pivot a lot of our activities. So our churches, just like any church in the States, had to figure out how do we record sermons? How do we, and we've kept up doing that even after the pandemic. They don't do the whole services, but I think all of the churches here, they all have Facebook pages now. A couple of them maybe didn't before the pandemic, but they all do now. And they're live streaming the sermons. So anybody can watch. Any Spanish speakers in the US could watch, or members who are traveling or members who are ill or whatever could watch from home. So they've all gotten on that. The seminary records its chapel services. Lots of the churches were posting like devotions throughout the week. So they just discovered all of these ways to encourage people in their walks with Christ that were not happening before. And a lot of them they've kept up since the pandemic. So, and will probably keep up just into the future because they're awesome.
Yeah, now that's an excellent point too, that any Spanish speaking people in the US can actually be watching some of the services there. Hey,
and we've had pastors, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was going to say we've had pastors do catechesis and like Bible classes, confirmation classes, all of that sort of stuff has happened over Zoom. So they've gotten really, really good at it. I've been able to join services. Like you said, I joined the virtual Bible class at my home congregation, which was a total blessing. Like I have missed out on worshiping there ever since I've been here. So I got to be fed in my native language and see some familiar faces that I couldn't have done because they didn't do that before the pandemic. I've also joined services in Peru and in Spain. So it's just been fun.
Oh, that's great. Hey, give a shout out to your coworkers. Who are some of the people you're working with there?
So my number one right-hand woman is Courtney Zalmanoff. If she ever listens to this, she's amazing. I don't know what I did before I had her here. And then I'm currently working pretty intensely with two other ladies, Jamie Lynn and Terza. Terza is actually part of a missionary family. Her brother, Ted, is our regional director. So he's my boss. She has a brother who's serving in Puerto Rico. I couldn't even begin to list everybody. I have a Bible study of ladies that I meet with on Friday mornings who are pretty incredible. Shelly and Liz and Christine and Deb and Eva and Clarion. I think that's all of them.
Well,
yeah, I have an amazing community here and all around the region.
And that's great too, because we don't do this type of church work by ourselves. You know, you've got to have that community around you. So that's fantastic. And one of the things I've always enjoyed when I've been out traveling and meeting different churches and pastors and teachers and lay people and talking to some of our missionaries through the Office of International Missions is just how welcoming everybody is. And how, you can be in all these different parts of the world or different areas, but we have this common bond of our faith. Yeah,
that's one of the things I love about serving internationally is that I go to a church here and like the service is, we're hearing the same scripture readings that like anybody in the States is hearing. Some of the hymns are translations of hymns that I sang at St. Paul's all the time. Except it always happens that I'll hear a hymn and I'll be like, I know that's a hymn in English. What is it? And I can't think of it. Like I recognize the tune, but I can't think of it. I'm not very musical. But I recognize a lot of them. What is that? And it drives me nuts. But yeah, it's so cool that I can go to churches all around our region, and it's essentially, I mean, the liturgy is familiar to me. You've got the Lord's Prayer, you've got the creeds, all of that. And that's one of the things that when we are able to have volunteers and visitors come and visit our fields, it's neat to see them making that connection too and going, oh, wow, I'm a part of this faith that is like global. It's so neat to watch them make those connections. And, you know, they're sitting next to someone that looks and acts and speaks completely different to them, but they're seeing them as a brother or a sister in the faith.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Now we touched on it a little bit. I mean, this has been 2020 had just been a crazy year, and 2021 so far has been a little crazy. But what have been the effects of the pandemic on your work, and how have you kind of gotten around some of those?
So me personally, I mean, I just want to say throughout the whole thing, I've been blessed way more than I ever deserve. If I look at things in perspective and some of the things that have gone on around the world and that people have suffered, I mean, I've been healthy the entire time. The whole missionary community has been healthy the entire time. I have a job that I'm still able to do. So I'm just beyond grateful. And like I was talking a little bit about how missionaries were already used to some sort of things like working virtually with people that are scattered and being far from our families. Not that that's enjoyable, but we're kind of used to it. It comes with the territory. And then just for me personally, a lot of my favorite activities and pastimes are kind of introverted things. So having a curfew, which we still have, and just what did we call it? Not social distancing, whatever, where we staying at home. Quédate en casa is what it is in Spanish. The stay home orders and stuff. Not that they were enjoyable, but they weren't the worst thing in the world for me. And we here in the DR were always able to, like, I could walk around the neighborhood. I could always go outside, which is something that kept me sane, like being able to have sunshine, and we have sunshine all the time, but being able to get outside and move and things like that, because other places in our region had really severe lockdowns to the point where they were not able to even go outside. But what's made me crazy throughout the whole pandemic, and still makes me crazy, is that I can't make plans for anything. I'm the volunteer coordinator. Like, it's in my job. I make plans for things, and I can't make plans, and it drives me up the wall. I still can't make plans.
Well, yeah, the funny thing on that is
you can't make plans for things tomorrow, like much less things that are going to happen in 6 months or a year. But that's what I do, but I can't.
So you have the same issues that anybody here in the States has right now, who's a volunteer coordinator or plan coordinator, because nobody's able to really make plans yet either.
Yeah.
Now, are you involved in things like VBS and Sunday School? And I know you're doing some English language teaching, but what type of youth programs or children programs do you get involved in?
So a lot of that has kind of been put on hiatus because of the pandemic. We had in the Dominican, we had a youth group, like, of all the churches in the DR that was really gaining some momentum. A couple of our churches have children's activities either on Sunday or a different day in the week. So we're building in a lot of those areas. VBSs, it's not something that happens every year, and it's like a huge, decorations, and those aren't, it's not the same as it would be in the States. It's not what you're envisioning, but we have had vacation Bible schools that have gone on here, different kinds of things like that. One of the main outreach activities that I'm involved in right now is actually teaching English. It sort of has happened all in a flurry back in like September, maybe. We have 2 Lutheran schools that are part of the Dominican Republic Lutheran Mission. And schools right now are not meeting in person. And so our teachers, though, they're still going into work and they're doing professional development. So they've been getting sort of a colloquy type theological training about Lutheran doctrine. They've been reviewing the strategic plans for their schools. They've been participating in some other online sessions provided by the Ministry of Education, and they are learning English. And Courtney and I were asked to step in and provide that teaching for them. Neither of us is a teacher. Never had any kind of teacher training, but our expertise is the fact that we're native English speakers. Right. And so we both stepped into that role and figured it out as we went along. We are doing an online training program. But the goal is basically to get the teachers to a basic level where they could teach, I mean, we're talking like preschoolers, but teach them so that they can teach others, because offering English in schools is a huge incentive. I mean, that's a way to boost enrollment. It's a reason why a parent would send their child to a Lutheran school as opposed to a public school. And then of course, we also have the opportunity to share the gospel with them. And even through the teaching of English, we have the opportunity to share the gospel with them. So as Courtney and I are teaching the teachers, we're using a curriculum, but we're also adding to it. We taught them Psalm 27:1 in Spanish, "The Lord is my light and my salvation." We did Jesus loves me. And now we're doing Luther's morning prayer, because we want to keep that faith, keep those faith elements injected in there. So it's going. I'm having a lot of fun with it, honestly. And then another opportunity came up to help with English in one of our churches. One of the deaconess students there, who's actually the pastor's wife, she's in the deaconess program at Fort Wayne. She was making some copies one day, and the woman at the copy shop asked about English classes, and she was like, "Well, we don't, but we could." Yeah. So the woman at the copy shop indicated that she had some family and some friends, and like could get a little group together, and we advertised it to members and had an interest meeting. And so I've been really excited to step alongside her and just consult like I'm some sort of expert now. But to just share some of the things that we had done, because she's going to use the same curriculum. So just kind of share like what we had done, what worked, what didn't work, kind of the pace that we went at, and also see her in the classroom, because she's a teacher by training. So I'm just watching her and like absorbing things, and also see it being used really as a bridge into the church. I mean, I don't think the woman at the copy shop is not a member. So so really see that in action, like grassroots mission work, church planting. Like this is how we do it. We make contacts, and then we engage them in different types of activities, and eventually they get formed into the body of Christ and join the body of Christ that way. So it's cool to see it in a different context, and then it's happening in other parts of the region too. So it's gaining a lot of momentum.
Well, it sounds like you're developing those relationships that are more than just surface relationships. You're really digging deeper, and not only providing the benefit of teaching English, but also introducing them to the faith.
Yeah. Mission work is so relational, so relational. Everything I do is relational, whether it's here with local members, or whether it's in my role as a volunteer coordinator. If I need, I don't know, like a shuttle driver or something, like you got to know people, or I don't know, a place for a team to have lunch. Maybe you have a relationship with the guy who owns the cafeteria down the street, and he gives you a discount. Like it's just all about who you know, and you got a guy that does this or does that. And yeah, it's all about those relationships, and then of course the relationships with the ministry team, the pastors and the Lutheran Hour Ministries offices and different partners on the ground, schools, deaconesses, different. Yeah.
So one of the things we talked about a little bit was your blog, and some of these great stories are shared on your blog. What's the blog been like for you? And again, share the name of the blog post. So the
URL for the blog is missionarymac.blogspot.com.
Okay.
At missionarymac.blogspot.com. I think you said you were going to put a link to that. That'll be better. So I started my blog back when I was during my first stint as a missionary, which was 2009 through 2011, went right out of college. And I sort of did it because I was a scrapbooker, like creative memories type scrapbooking with, stickers and paper and all that stuff, because I love to take pictures, and I didn't just want to shove them in albums and forget who people were and what happened. So I would caption things and whatever, but it just wasn't really a practical. Well, I guess I did do it in El Paso, but it wasn't. I brought my scrapbooking. You can edit this part. I brought my scrapbooking things to El Paso so I could get caught up, but I wasn't scrapbooking everything that happened to me because I just was taking pictures constantly. Like we had short-term teams coming through all the time. Like I never would have been able to keep up with it, but I still wanted a way to wrap stories around all of these images that I was having, instead of just taking them and then deleting them. And so I started blogging, and people also just oddly care about your life when you're a missionary. Like I could write about, I don't know, getting a haircut or baking cookies, and like everything that you do as a missionary is kind of interesting because, places here are not like places in the States, and ingredients here are not like ingredients in the States. And so everything is kind of, it just has that lens that just makes it a little bit more interesting. And so I did it for 3 years and I loved it. And then when I came back to the mission field, as soon as I started working for OIM, which would have been in March of 2018. So throughout the whole, not application process, but throughout the whole like initial support raising process, when I was still in the US before I had deployed, I was taking pictures of everything and just documenting things. And I found it to be, people enjoy reading it, I think, but I would do it for me, even if people didn't read it, because it's a helpful way to sort of categorize and synthesize and process my life. When we have a team come down, they get to go through this whole debriefing process that helps them like think about what they've seen and experienced. But I guess for us on the field, it's sort of, we're doing that like constantly all the time. And so it's a great way for me to just process and sort through things. And sometimes I can't like express it, but a few days or a few weeks later, I'll be able to write about things. And it's a creative outlet for me too. I love to write, and I've really kind of come into my own in that way. And I've been able to do some writing for Lutheran Witness, and I've written some articles, some Facebook posts and things for the region. So I really do enjoy writing in that way. I think words have a lot of power. So it's a creative outlet for me.
Well, we miss your writing here. But one of the things in preparing for this, I started reading some of your blog posts, and my favorite one, I think, of all of them so far was your tour of all the bedrooms you've been in.
Yeah, I shamelessly stole this idea from another missionary who served in Russia. She told me that for a year, she took a picture of every bed she slept in. And so I was supposed to be on home service in 2020. Home service is something that every international missionary does every 2 years. They go back to the US for about 8 weeks for some downtime with family and also to reconnect with supporters. So they typically do a ton of traveling around the US and might sleep in a different bed every night for like 5 or 6 weeks. So I was like, oh, this is going to be great. I'm going to have so many beds. And then the pandemic hit, but I still slept in, I think it was 10 different beds in 2020. And I took a picture of all of them, and then I put a blog post about them with all the pictures. And I think every bed had, every like caption had a hyperlink to another blog post because it tells a story. So I debated not posting it because I was like, well, this is lame. It's like not, there was supposed to be way more, but it still tells a story of 2020. So I'm doing it again this year, and Lord willing, there'll be a lot more than 10 because I will be on home service. But yeah, I'm gonna try it again.
Well, let's look ahead to this year. What's next on the horizon? What do you anticipate or pray for coming up this year?
So kind of an all-consuming project right now is we are getting ready in Santiago to host 8 Brazilian Alliance missionary pastors. So these are men who either just graduated from the seminary in Brazil or received a call from the Lutheran Church in Brazil to serve elsewhere in the world. 4 of them are going to serve in Latin America, and 4 of them are going to serve in Africa. But they're all coming here with their families. So it's 18 people in all, and we are going to give them an orientation. So this is something that any North American missionary goes through an orientation in St. Louis before deploying. Because the LCMS has this wonderful structure and all these processes and support teams and things in place for missionaries. So this is really an opportunity for OIM and for the LCMS to show a sister church body, the Lutheran Church in Brazil, that the LCMS planted starting back in 1900, to show this sister church body how to send its own missionaries. So like I can say that, but I don't think the gravity of it has really fully sunk in yet. It's a huge opportunity and it's awesome. It's a lot of little logistical details right now, which is why I've been called upon to be a part of the planning circle. We have a spreadsheet. It has I just added another one earlier today. It has 15 tabs, I think. Spreadsheets are my jam. There's a spreadsheet for everything. I'm bringing Excel to the mission field.
I know many people here.
That's kind of our current project. And we're also going to be hosting some executives from the OIM leadership and some of the president and a couple of vice presidents from the Brazilian Lutheran Church. So it's really going to be our opportunity to show and to teach another mission field. And then, of course, to get to know these wonderful men who are going to be a part of our team, a part of our family. It's great. So one of them and his wife are actually going to be in the Dominican. So they'll come for orientation and then they'll stay here and we'll get to see them super regularly. So yeah.
Speaking of that, one of your most recent blog posts was the map that had all the people coming and going. Was that what I read?
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that. There
was a missionary family here in the Dominican that recently redeployed to a different role in St. Louis. They're still missionaries, still a part of our region, still wonderful friends of mine. But they had this world map on their wall and they put like little thumbnail pictures of all the missionaries on the map where they serve. So, well, actually a lot of us are like floating in the middle of the Atlantic because the Dominican's like this big on the map and there's a ton of us. But when they moved, they bequeathed the map to me as I was nominated as the person most likely to actually keep it up as people move around. There's a ton of transition in the mission field. There just is. And so I have it hanging on my dining room wall now, and I look at it every time I come down the stairs for breakfast in the morning. It's there, and it's just a reminder to pray for all of these people, because when a missionary leaves the field, which does happen, the picture doesn't like go in the trash. They have a whole line at the bottom of missionaries who have served previously. So some of them I never crossed paths with because they were doing it for like 2 or 3 years before I came along. But I kept their pictures there. They paved the way for what I'm doing now. You know, a missionary's goal is always to work ourselves out of a job. So I guess if I were here forever, that wouldn't be an ideal situation. So as people move around, it's just an opportunity for me to pray for them, even after they've left the mission field, wherever they are doing whatever they're doing now. And then, of course, my brothers and sisters that are serving, it's a great way to just see where all of us are. And then those that will come along in the future, I will keep it up. I will maintain it. So future missionaries, as they come along, and when I see their pictures, I'll print them out and add them to the map wherever they are.
You know, that's something I never really thought about before. I mean, it really is a family.
Yeah, completely.
Well, how can people keep in contact with you and help support your work? I mean, by reading your blog, I mean, you can really find out a lot about what you're doing, but
yeah, I mean, that's the best way. I try to, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Oh, no. I mean, just how's the best way is getting to the blog.
I try to post on the blog at least once a week, usually about 6 times a month. So if you want the most regular updates, and those are like lengthy, I mean, those are stories. That's where it's not like 100 40 whatever character Twitter post or something. It's that I write on the blog. The LCMS also has a wonderful communications department that makes an online giving page for each missionary. So lcms.org/Mackenzie, Mackenzie. Maybe there's going to be a link to that too. But that is a customized online giving page where you can read a whole biography of me and my role, and there's a prayer at the bottom. There's a photo. You can print all of that information. It's like a half-page bulletin insert size, so pastors or secretaries can put those in their church bulletins. People can print them out, put them on their refrigerators. There's also a link there to give to the LCMS and help support the church's work through me. You can subscribe to my newsletter. I send a newsletter every month. You can get that by email. You can follow me on Facebook. Just look me up, first and last name. And then you can also email me. Our LCMS employee emails are really easy. It's firstname.lastname@lcms.org. So Erin.Mackenzie@lcms.org. If you have any questions about missionary life, I'm happy to talk about it all the time. As you can probably tell, I am planning a home service for later this year. So I'd love to stop by, come see you, come visit, talk in person from 6 feet away.
Yep.
And then you can also get involved. Watch my newsletter, watch my blog, my Facebook page, the LCMS social media accounts, LCMS mission work, LCMS international social media accounts for upcoming opportunities like Another Missions Unpacked. There are also a couple of opportunities to volunteer. I said that we're not doing teams, but there are opportunities for individuals to volunteer. Of course, online. There's an English conversation partners thing that's happening that's really cool, where you can just chat with somebody in a different country who's learning English. So you can apply to do things like that, where you can serve from the comfort of your own home. There's a really cool opportunity from one of the Eurasia missionaries looking for, it's listed as a chef, someone who's willing to do a cooking demonstration of a dish from wherever they're from, something that represents where they're from in the US. And he would invite, like, I think it's his youth group or a group of people in Europe to watch, watch them learn how to make something and also just chat about the faith. So some really cool online opportunities to serve from like your couch. And then we're getting back into kind of emphasizing, we can't bring teams down, but there are some places where we can safely host an individual. It's a bit more cumbersome to have, a group and to house a group at this point in time, but we can safely bring down individuals. And so there are some opportunities to serve in person. And I think there are going to be some more opportunities to serve in person. So lcms.org/serve now is a database of all opportunities for missionary service, including career missionary service and geo missionary service, which is like 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I also love the idea of connecting with classrooms or youth groups or things like that via Zoom, like we're doing today.
Yeah, I actually have a presentation next week with for National Lutheran Schools Week with a first grade class in Florida.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Yeah,
that'll be fun.
It's gonna be awesome.
Hey, I'd also be remiss if I don't talk about, or at least bring up, Concordia Gospel Outreach, which is a way to donate money to provide books and resources to our missionaries out there as well. So you can find that on cph.org. So I got to throw that in there.
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
I see Spanish arch books and all kinds of CPH stuff in our churches all the time.
Oh, good. Glad that's out there. So, all right. Well, Erin, thank you so much for letting me stop by and hit the road with you. Before we leave, I want to ask lightning round questions. Okay. Favorite food?
Okay, I have to say toasted ravioli here. I gotta represent St. Louis. If you don't know what toasted ravioli is, you're missing out. Go to St. Louis and get some.
Last book read?
I'm in the middle of a book right now. It's super long. It's called Troubled Blood. It's like a murder mystery. Recommended to me by an OIM colleague, actually. It's written by J.K. Rowling,
Okay.
but under a pseudonym. And then, fun fact, a book that I read recently, not the book right before that, but the book before that, I read Little Women in Spanish. It's called Mujercitas. I don't do a lot of reading in Spanish, but it was good for my brain.
Oh, good. Bingeable television. Do you get to watch much TV down there?
I do not have a TV. Most of the missionaries do not have a TV, but I do have access to Netflix. So right now I'm watching The Crown. I was pretty excited when the last season of that came out. Netflix Latin America is different than Netflix in the States. So another show, Great British Baking Show. I don't know if you're familiar with that one, but sometimes that'll come out on Netflix in the States, but not Netflix here. Anytime it comes out here, I'm on it. Or anytime I'm in the States or like connecting through the States, if I go to somewhere else in the region and I'm like in the airport, I'll download all the episodes so I can watch them. Big fan of that one.
We've binge watched that one. How about favorite pastime? What do you like to do?
Well, I like to read. I have a Kindle, so I do all ebooks for the most part. I like to run. I usually start my day by going to a botanical gardens. That's about 5 minutes from where I live and going for a nice run. And I love to cook, especially trying new recipes. I kind of have a reputation for, if you come over to my house, it's probably going to be something I've never made before.
And then last one, what's your favorite Christmas memory?
I have so many Christmas memories. I love Christmas. And I love Advent too. Advent. Don't forget Advent. So my home congregation, St. Paul's, my favorite service there is Hanging of the Greens. I love that service. It's the first Sunday in Advent. The choir processes down the aisles and hangs up the wreaths, and then the trees are up, but they're not lit until we sing O Come Emmanuel, which is my favorite Advent hymn, and then the lights come on and we say Rejoice, and it's just beautiful. I also do love some of the trimmings of Christmas. I love to bake. Baking here is kind of an adventure, but I baked sugar cookies successfully and then decorated them, which is like way better than actually baking them. I love the decorating. My neighborhood growing up, we used to put luminaries out on the street, like paper bags with sand and candles. So that was always fun. We used to go around and look at Christmas lights, just so many like positive things. Here in the Dominican, Christmas is huge here, honestly. We don't celebrate Thanksgiving or Halloween. So Christmas really starts the 1st of October, basically. Mm-hmm. And also in 2020, we all needed a little bit of Christmas cheer. So a group of friends and I celebrated Christmas in July. I think it was on the 4th of July. We like put up Christmas decorations and we watched Elf and we did a gift exchange and the whole bit. And then let's see, growing up, we always had a live Christmas tree, but here you can't get live Christmas trees. So this past Christmas, I refused to buy a fake tree. Like I wouldn't do it. But then I thought, what if I get a white one? Like it's not even trying to look real. Like it's just, if I'm going to go fake, I'm going to go fake. And then I found a tree it looks like it's like made out of sticks. It's a very typical kind of artisan handicraft that's made here, but there you can get like nativity scenes or different shaped trees. One of my missionary colleagues has one that's like huge. It's like 8 or 9 feet tall, and it looks more like an apple tree or something. So I bought a tree from this. It was just a street vendor. As soon as I saw hers, I knew exactly where it came from. So I bought this white tree that's made out of sticks. It's kind of carefully woven, but it has the form of a Christmas tree. Mm-hmm. So it's up and it doesn't like fold up or anything. So I put it up. I decorated it for Christmas. It's in the corner of my living room. And it's never coming down. It's going to be an all occasion tree. So currently it's a Valentine's tree.
Well, there you go.
That was a really long answer. You can edit out anything you want from me.
No, loved it. Well, Erin, thank you so much for joining me today. And thanks for sharing your story and what you're doing. We are so excited to hear these type of things. We'll be praying for you. Is there anything you'd like to just final wrap up that you'd like to share?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure. I love talking about mission work, talking about the Dominican. This is my dream job. There's nothing that I would rather be doing. I hope everyone is as happy in their vocation at some point as I am doing what I'm doing. It's wonderful.
I love that. Love to hear that. Erin, thanks a lot. We will talk to you again soon.
Yep. Take care.
Okay.
Stay warm.
Thanks. All right.